stressing me out. Little kids. My kids are grown up. You don't want to get stressed out. Wow, you have your hands full.
Or my wife. But it's good, like more space in the house.
Oh,
Like, you know, in Atlanta was like one bedroom apartment for 2 kids.
so where did you get?
Yeah, we bought a house in, I don't know, Newton Hills Park.
No,
Do you know North Side Elementary? North Side?
okay, because I find it.
Which
Forward. I lived in Harris, outstanding.
Gemini. I'm in the habit of
I
using
know the
Google
same
a lot
thing.
because it's cheap if you use it for like your institutional login. And basically trying to use it as my assistant for everything. So
You
not
actually on the
just
hills.
teaching my course, even though my course is really about generative AI.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, that's the funny thing is I put an offer.
Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thank you for coming of this IE seminar. Today, we're very happy to have Zhuoran Lu from Computer Science Department from Purdue University. And Zhuoran's research is mainly on human-computer interface and artificial intelligence. And he has published quite a few papers in the top HCI conference, like CHI conference. And today his topic is on accounting individual cognition and social influence for human AI collaboration. Let's welcome Zhuoran.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Professor Zhou, for this warm introduction. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about our recent research about how do we enhance human collaboration by accounting these 2 factors of individual cognition and social influences. Okay. So nowadays, with the rapid development of artificial intelligence technologies, AI has been deeply integrated into our lives, ranging from criminal justice, financial investment, medical diagnosis. In all these scenarios, we see people are collaborating with AI by receiving recommendations from it. For example, when a physician is looking at this sonography, they see this highlighting area and indicated by an AI-based system, say whether it's a cancer or not. And then after reviewing all this information, this physician will make his or her final diagnosis. And here, we see a new paradigm of human collaboration is what we call human AI decision making. So how do we formally define this paradigm? It means that given a decision-making task, we first have an AI model or AI-based system which will provide a recommendation on the decision-making task. And then the human decision maker will take this information of both the task and the recommendation to generate his or her final decision. Okay, so why do we need this kind of paradigm? Definitely we would like to have a better final decisions. Well, it is definitely important that the human decision maker should have the authority to control in this loop. But more importantly, that we would like to augment humans with information provided by this AI model, so that we can achieve this 1 + 1 is over 2 performance. So that the humans will be augmented and make better final decisions. Okay. However, in reality, we found that this human decision making does not always work. And sometimes it can even worse than humans or AI performing the decision-making task solely. So there must be some reasons, right? You have different information sources and different decision parties, but we cannot aggregate the information appropriately. And there must be some reasons. There must be some factors. What are these reasons that cause this undesirable achievement between human and AI? There can be several reasons we can imagine. One of the important reasons here is that people's cognitive process can impact their adoption and the utilization of the AI. For example, we say when the human decision maker faced all this information, he or she was like, well, how do I engage with AI? How do I take its advice? And they can suffer from this cognitive bias. They were like, well, I'm super confident, so I don't have to get AI advice. So if in that case, and the AI is actually correct, then the human decision maker will suffer from a under-reliance on AI. That's an example of how individuals' cognitive process will impact human collaborative decision making, right? And also we can imagine that beyond human decision maker and AI in this loop, human can also receive information that is beyond AI. For example, we say when a group of people, say all of us, are interacting with an AI assistant together to make a decision, and all the people have their opinions, and all other people's opinions can have impacts on later human decision maker. For example, when all other people say, oh, I trust this AI, and I agree, vote for the AI. However, if in this case the AI is actually incorrect, then this human decision maker may suffer from a over-reliance on AI. That's an example that social influence can also have impacts on how human and AI collaborate with each other, right? And all these factors and reasons makes the human collaboration not desirable nowadays. So my research seeks to redesign the human-centered AI to facilitate human collaboration based on the solid understanding of human interaction. Because currently, it is still underexplored that how do humans interact with AI and how do humans take AI advice. After we got this solid understanding, we can be equipped by this knowledge to redesign AI models, AI-based systems to facilitate this collaboration with people. And specifically, my research has two primary lines. The first line involves the examination of the roles of individuals' cognition in this process. And after that, how can we use this kind of knowledge to incorporate individuals' cognitive process as a computable component in the model design? And the second line, as we previously said, incorporates the social influence. We would like to examine the role of social influence in the human interaction process, and how can we redesign the social influence to be presented as an informing mechanism in human collaboration, so that it provides people a more analytical, deliberating, decision-making environment, so that they can better take the AI advice. And both of the roles jointly contribute to this bigger picture of human collaboration. Okay, so I'll go through each of the lines and show some examples of my work. Okay, so first of all, we'll dive into the first project of the first line. We're wondering, what exactly are the cognitive processes that people are involved when they are engaged with AI? Especially, how do they trust and rely on AI, which is one of the most important engagements that people can do when they are receiving AI's recommendation. Okay, so most of the previous studies, they focus on the scenarios where the performance feedback is provided. For example, they say the model's accuracy is 75%, so that people receive this information. They can determine their trust and reliance on AI based on this performance feedback, right? And the previous studies, they found that when the performance is higher for the AI models, people will naturally have higher trust and reliance on it, right? However, in reality, we say in most cases, the performance feedback is not always feasible. For example, for college admission, this kind of tasks, it is usually limited or unable for us to know how well the model works. For sometimes, like medical diagnosis, the performance feedback of the model will be provided in a delayed mode. We cannot get the real-time performance feedback. So in all of these kind of cases, how will people determine their trust and reliance on AI? How will they engage with the AI models? That's a question. So what exactly are the factors will drive people's trust and reliance in this process if the performance feedback is limited or absent? We conjecture that there is one significant factor here is the human AI agreement, which means that whether the AI's recommendation is the same as people's independent judgment on the decision-making task. Okay. And we further conjecture that people will have higher trust in the AI-based system if the AI model have higher tendency to agree with them on tasks, especially when they have high confidence. One is we conjecture that because when people have higher confidence in their independent judgment, they will have higher tendency to consider that themselves are correct, and naturally they'll perceive that the model is more trustworthy, and they will determine their trust to a higher tendency, right? Okay, so we have that conjecture, and how can we examine that conjecture to figure out what exactly are the effects of human agreement? We have a problem here that among this human interaction process, there are so many cognitive factors involved, both from the model's performance, model's feedback, human's cognitive process. All these factors, they are mixed. How can we isolate this one single factor and find the neat causal effects of one single factor here? To do that, we conducted this randomized human subject experiment, where we asked people to do this speed dating event prediction task, where people review this, as you can see here from the interface, people see the profiles of two people having a dating event, and they are asked to make a binary prediction on whether the date participant will see his or her date partner again. Okay, and specifically, they'll be assisted by the AI model and follow this three-step procedure. They'll first make their initial prediction on the event, and then they'll review the AI model's prediction. And after that, they got a chance to make a final decision and revise their initial prediction. Okay, so in this specific human decision-making task, we would like to understand the effects of human AI agreement, especially on tasks where people have high confidence. Okay, so in order to implement our study, we first conducted a pilot study to gather information about people's independent judgment and their confidence in their judgments on a large set of speed dating events. After this pilot study, we can categorize the tasks into several types. For example, the first type is the majority is correct with high confidence, which means that when the majority of the participants in the pilot study, they are making independent judgment on the speed dating events, they feel like they are very confident. And the majority of them, which means over 80% of them, are correct. And similarly, we have this majority is incorrect with high confidence, which means that the majority of the participants in the pilot study, they were actually making incorrect predictions on the events. But they still feel that they are confident. And similarly, we have this third and fourth categories where people both feel that they are not quite sure about the task, and they can either be correct or incorrect in these tasks in their independent judgment without AI assistance. Okay, so after this pilot study, we're able to operate our formal experiment design. So how do we do that? So first of all, across this experiment, we did not reveal the AI's accuracy to people. So people actually don't know how well does the AI model work. Okay, and specifically, we have two phases of tasks for people to do. In phase one, we incorporated 20 tasks with high confidence, which means that in this subset of tasks, the majority of the people feel that they are confident. Okay, and these 20 tasks are from that pilot study. Okay, based on these 20 tasks, we manipulate 3 levels of human AI agreement, varying from 40%, 70%, 100%. As low as 40%, it means that the AI model's prediction will only have 40% of likelihood to agree with the majority of people's independent judgment. And as high as 100%, it means that the AI model will try to always agree with people's independent judgment on these high confidence tasks. Okay. To operate that manipulation across treatments, we take the same tasks, same 20 tasks across all the treatments and manipulate the different AI models' prediction. And in order to exclude the potential confounding variable, as we previously said, the AI's accuracy, we did some linear programming here to assign the AI model's prediction across treatments to make sure that across the treatments, the AI's accuracy is the same, but they have different tendency to agree with the majority of people's independent judgment. Okay, and after that, we would like to further incorporate the phase 2 of 10 tasks where people have low confidence to maximize our potential experimental effects. So in this phase 2, all the people will have their tendency to feel like they're not quite sure about their independent judgment. And we take the same tasks and the same AI model's recommendation across all the treatments. So note here, because all the things happened in phase 2 are the same across all the treatments. So if there is any difference that we observe, that must be caused by the difference that we manipulated in phase 1. Right. So basically in phase 2, we use two metrics to measure people's reliance on AI. The first metric is called agreement fraction. It's the likelihood of people's final prediction to be the same as AI's prediction. And the second metric is switch fraction, which means that people's final prediction is the same as AI's recommendation, conditioned on that their initial prediction is different from the AI's prediction. Okay. And also we incorporated the two surveys, one at the midpoint between phase 1 and phase 2 to understand people's perceptions of the model, and one at the end to ask people to self-report their overall trust on the AI model. Okay. So after this experiment design, we would like to understand what exactly are the impacts of human agreement. The results show that this high confidence human agreement level significantly affects humans' trust and reliance on AI. And specifically, with higher human model agreement, people feel that the model is more accurate, more reliable, and more understandable, so that they put more reliance on the model. It shows that it seems that people have this kind of a heuristic to use this agreement as a proxy to gauge the model's performance, and then use that gauge to determine their trust and reliance on AI. And that reveals some of the confirmation bias towards AI of human decision makers, that people prioritize their own opinions and use their own opinions to measure the AI's performance. Okay, and we can see that this confirmation bias here can lead to some risks. When people in human collaboration. If we split the data in phase 2 into two parts, the first part is a scenario where the model is correct, and the second part is a scenario where the model is incorrect. We can see a similar trend here. With the increasing of human agreement, people's reliance on AI is also increasing no matter whether the model is correct or incorrect. It shows that people may just overtrust an AI model simply, just because that their agreement with the AI model is high, no matter whether the AI model is correct or incorrect, right? And also people can undertrust the AI model only because their agreement with the AI model is relatively low, no matter whether the model is correct or incorrect. And that is a risk that we found from people's behavioral patterns when they collaborate with AI. Okay, so that's one of the examples of the experimental studies that we are trying to do to figure out what are the pivotal factors here in human collaboration and what are the effects of these factors. But that's not enough, because now we have this kind of understandings. We would like to further quantify these understandings to mathematically describe these kind of tendencies. How do we do that? We use this theory-guided computational modeling of individuals' cognitive process to describe the interplay of people's cognitive factors and all this information lying in this process. So if we imagine that when a human decision maker, is doing this decision under the AI assistance, actually, he or she has this action space in the binary decision task. He or she can either accept AI or reject AI. And whenever he or she chooses the correct action, for example, if they correctly accepted the AI's prediction and the AI's prediction is actually correct, then he or she will gain some utility. Otherwise, they will lose some utility of beta here. And in this frame, we can see it is a typical decision under uncertainty problem. And this problem has been widely investigated by some economic theories to review people's cognitive process in the past decades. So we can adapt from that theories and inspired by that. Also, we can describe this human decision-making process as a two-component model proposed by the economic theories. For example, here, we first use the utility estimation model to describe people's estimation of this, both of the actions, either to accept AI or reject AI. And after that, the discrete choice process to stochastically choose which action to take, right? Those are what typical economic theory model describes people's decision under uncertainty. But now we have a little difference here in that people, as we previously said, people's independent judgment, their confirmation bias, also makes impacts. So to reflect that empirical understanding, we further add this human adjustment module. We allow people's independent judgment to make impacts both in the utility estimation and action selection. To reflect that significant impacts, of people's independent judgments here. So that this two-component model plus the adjustment describes how the people adopt AI's device. Okay, so let's make an example here to see how exactly does this adjustment work. For example, we say when people's independent judgment are affecting this utility estimation component, we say when AI in the binary decision-making task, the AI model has its prediction to be null or negative, and it has its confidence to be 0.7. And at the same time, the human decision maker has his or her independent judgment on the task with a disagreeing opinion of yes, and also with a confidence 0.9. What will people do? They will first do a confidence aggregation. They will try to figure out what is his or her confidence in the AI models in the AI model's prediction. Okay, this can be done by simply doing the confidence average, or more complicated, they can take a naive Bayesian approach to aggregate his confidence, his opinion, and the model's confidence and model's opinion. For example, here, if they are having a disagreeing opinion, the human's confidence in the model's prediction will be reduced, for example here, to be 0.21. And after that, when the human decision maker is trying to estimate the utility using this aggregated confidence, the utility of acceptance will be lower than the utility of rejection, right? So we can see here, because of humans' disagreement with AI, in their independent judgment and AI's recommendation, people have their tendency to reject the AI model more, and vice versa. Okay. So we have tried to, until now, we have tried to both experimentally understand what are the factors here affecting human collaboration process, and how can we mathematically describe this kind of a process. After we obtain this knowledge, we're wondering, can we incorporate that knowledge into model design to facilitate human collaboration? That leads to the second part of the second project that I want to talk about, is that we want to build this kind of a cognition-aware AI to explicitly account people's cognitive process so that the model can accommodate people's preference or cognitive biases. So how do we do that? First of all, we want to reflect some of the drawbacks of traditional machine training process. Say, typically, we want to train the machine model to assist a human. We only try to optimize a loss function to find the model parameter that minimizes the loss between the AI's recommendation and the ground truth, right? But here is a component human decision maker is left out. So it's a cognition oblivious AI, where it does not take human's cognitive process into consideration. Opposite to that, what we want to do is that we want to optimize this human AI collaborative system by finding a model parameter that minimize the ground truth and the human AI drone decision making, which means that it's optimized between the human decision maker's final decision and the model's and the ground truth, so that it explicitly takes cognition into consideration. Here we can imagine that this human decision maker, when he or she is facing all this information, there is a function f. It takes both the decision-making task, his or her independent judgment, and the model's prediction, all this information together, and generate its own decision. And what we want to do is optimize the model between this decision and the ground truth. Okay, so how do we do that? We found that the first question we want to answer is that, what exactly is this f function, right? Because we will need this formulation of f to operate this optimization problem. So as we previously reviewed in our experimental and computational studies, we have one example here to consider the human cognition as a computable component, is that we say this confidence is a human's confidence in their own judgment is a factor here. So maybe you can take this example of a confidence threshold based model. Say, human has his or her own confidence in their judgment, and there is a threshold tau. Whenever human's confidence is over this threshold tau, he or she tend to reject AI. And whenever, if the confidence is lower than this threshold tau, he or she has a tendency to take the AI's advice. And to make it more realistic, this confidence tau is not a fixed variable. It follows from a distribution. Okay, so if that's the case, if we use that formulation to describe this F of how humans generate their final decisions based on the AI's recommendation, we can see after some mathematical reduction, we found that it is equivalent to a confidence-based weighting, which means that in the training, in each of the training instances in the data set, we assign a weight here, where the weight is inversely proportional to humans' own confidence in their own judgment. And we found that the optimal strategy to do this training is that we set this weight W assigned to each of the training instances to be 1 minus the CDF of humans' independent judgment confidence. Okay, so that's a proposed cognition aware AI model based on our assumption of this human decision making process. So how well does it work? To examine that, we further designed this human subject experiment where we ask people to do the image classification task under the AI's assistance. And to facilitate our experiment operation, we incorporate this data set where we have firstly one subcategory of images where we can see the churches, golf, parachute, all this what we call the daily objects. And we gauge that people will have high confidence in these tasks. And conversely, we have another subset of the data is the dog species classification, where we gauge that people will have lower confidence in this subtask. So that as a mixture, it shows a distribution. It shows a two distribution of human confidence. So we designed two experimental treatments. The control treatment where we use the baseline AI, which is using uniform weighting across all the data instances. And for the experimental treatment, we use the cognition aware AI, where we have the human confidence-based weighting. So basically, this human confidence-based weighting is established on a human confidence model, where we first collected a bunch of data of the training among these training data instances, and we trained a model to predict human confidence. And then this weight is set to be 1 minus this predicted confidence. And actually, we found that, as we expected, humans do have different confidence distributions on these two subcategories of tasks. And so that as a result, these daily objects will be trained with lower weight, but dog species will be trained with higher weight. Okay, so how well does it work? We can firstly look at this figure to see the y-axis shows the accuracy difference between the cognition aware AI and baseline AI, and the x-axis shows different categories of the images in this data set. We can see on the left, it is the low human confidence region where the dog species are lying on. We see the cognition aware AI does gain some accuracy improvement in this region because of the higher weight in training. And as a price, it lost some accuracy in the region where humans have high confidence. That's a comparison between the model's performance. But if we look into the team performance of the human and the AI together, we only see the increase of accuracy in the region where humans have low confidence. Because as we remembered, when people have high confidence, they have the tendency to reject the AI's model's recommendation and use their own judgment. So overall, we achieved a significant accuracy improvement of this human AI team decision making in this real human subject experiment. And also we have verified this approach in a wide range of simulations, including different AS accuracy, different expertise overlap, and different shapes, as we said, the shapes of the distribution of this tau. Okay, so now we have talked about the first line of our research. We have tried to empirically understand the cognitive process, and then we use that knowledge that we obtained from empirical studies to redesign models to facilitate human collaboration. As we said, beyond this cognitive process and AI's prediction, the social influence is also a significant factor here, right? And this kind of social influence can come from different sources and have different presentations. What exactly are they? So first of all, we can say there are two main types of social influence. The first type is what we call asynchronous social influence. For example, when we are scrolling our social media apps and we see all this kind of news with a small label or fact checking there generated by some algorithms, we're actually doing this news veracity judgment task with the AI assistance. And at this time, we also see the opinions from others. And these opinions are generated asynchronously, right? Previous users, they leave their comment, and we see their comments later, along with the AI's recommendation. Okay. Opposite to that, we also have the synchronous social influence. For example, let's say in a group discussion, a group of people, they are collaborating with an AI model, and all the group are discussing, exchanging opinions, and all these interactions among this group are happening synchronously in a real-time format. And both of these kind of opinions from others is essentially social influence mix. Okay. So what exactly are the impacts of this social influence? Again, we did some human subject experiments to find it out. One of the key findings here is that if a social influence is echoing AI, here, when I was trying to say echoing, it means that when a social influence, when other people's opinions are affected by the AI model and they agree with the AI model. Okay, for example, it's like when a group of people, all other people's opinions are saying that, well, I like the AI, we go for the AI. If that's the case, then it has mixed effects on how individual human decision maker interact with AI. For example, in the study we found that these social influences can amplify the effects of AI, which means that the magnitude of the AI model's prediction is larger when people are under social influence comparing to people who are collaborating with AI independently. We also found that this social influence can mediate the effects of AI, which means that in addition to the direct impact of AI on people, AI can also first affect other people's opinion and let other people's opinions affect you. And for the synchronous social influence, we found that when a group of people they are collaborating with one single AI model, the group discussion increases both people's overall reliance and over-reliance on this AI. Basically, people use AI more, but also over-rely on it more. Okay, so that's definitely not a desirable case of social influence. Because if we think about the traditional social learning studies, when we are providing people, human decision makers, more information sources, we hope that people can leverage all these information sources to make more analytical and deliberating decisions. But that's not the case. So we are wondering, can we redesign the presentation of the social influences so that we promote this kind of a better human utilization of AI? So that introduces the last part of my second line, is that we want to do this mechanism design in this workflow of human collaboration. As we say, this social influence, when it echoes AI, it's not good. It's not always good. So what we want to do is that we want to introduce this kind of social influence that is independent from AI. So that because of the independence, there must be some disagreement between the AI model's prediction and this independent social influence prediction. So that, for example, it can be sampled from independent peers who are not affected by AI. So their opinions can serve as a second opinion, in addition to the primary opinion of the AI model, so that when human decision maker face all this information, they can make a more analytical thinking and make a better utilization of AI. So how can we develop that into an intervention? We again designed a human subject experiment. Here, as you can see, we first incorporated this decision-making task as a sentiment analysis. People review the text and predict whether the sentiment is expressed to be positive or negative. After that, they can see the AI's recommendation. But in addition to that, they can also see a second opinion provided by an independent peer. And we hope that this second opinion can have some kind of independence from the AI. And specifically, we designed several levels of agreement between the AI and the second opinion, varying from low to medium to high, roughly 30%, 50%, to 70%, which is operated by its 3 different sampling policies on a second opinion pool, so that it have different tendencies to agree with this AI. And after people review all this information, we would like to measure, we would like to ask them to make their final decisions, and we want to measure their reliance on the AI model, specifically the over-reliance, under-reliance, and appropriate reliance, which means that over-reliance means that people's reliance on the AI model, even when the model is incorrect, and under-reliance means that people's rejection of the AI model, even when the model is correct. And the appropriate reliance in this binary decision-making task is effectively equivalent to decision accuracy. Okay, so we'd like to see how does this intervention work to show this second opinion in addition to the AI's opinion. So our results show that, well, definitely it works. It has significantly decreased of people's over-reliance on the AI. But as a price, it also increased the under-reliance on AI. So that overall, there is no change in appropriate reliance. So we can see there is a trade-off between the decrease of over-reliance and the increase of under-reliance. We can also see a trend here. With a larger disagreement is presented, there will be more prominent effects of this intervention. So that's larger reduction of over-reliance and the larger increase of under-reliance. Okay, and we also found that, through another experiment, we also found that the sources of the second opinions does not impact their effects. So basically, it will be the same if we provide second opinions generated by both human peers and another machine learning model. Okay, so we designed this intervention, we found that it is not the desirable case. It works, but we don't want these side effects of increasing of under-reliance. So what makes this happen? One of the plausible explanations is that we show disagreement too frequently, because we always show the second opinion, so that it harms people's perceptions of the AI model, so that people increases their under-reliance on the model. In order to do that, in order to resolve that issue, we are imagining, can we utilize some of people's intuition to delegate to the human decision maker to make the choice to see second opinion by themselves? Okay. So we make this updated intervention here. As you can see, we still have this sentiment analysis task with the AI's recommendation, but people do not always see the second opinion. They will only see the second opinion when they actively request it. After they click this request button, the second opinion will be presented. And again, some extent of disagreement will be designed between the AI and the second opinion, vary from low to high. Again, we also want to measure people's reliance behavior here. So, does this intervention work? You can see, if the second opinion has this property to have a high level of agreement with the AI, then it can reduce people's over-reliance on AI, and without the change of under-reliance. So basically, overall, there is an increase of decision accuracy. Okay, and this is only achieved when the second opinion has this nice property to have a high level of agreement with the AI model. Okay, we see this is a desirable intervention that we want to have. And opposite to that, we also have this treatment of low level agreement, where the AI model's prediction and the second opinion do not always agree with each other, and it agrees at a very low level. In that case, we see still there is a decrease of over-reliance and increase of under-reliance, and so no change in decision accuracy. So basically, you can see here, this intervention does not this actively soliciting second opinion intervention works only when the second opinion has this property to have high level of agreement with the AI model. It shows a trade-off between the alignment and the complementarity between different information sources in human collaboration. If it is too aligned, then it does not have this kind of impacts of second opinion to promote people to think analytically. If it is too complementary, as we show here, so that it has a low level of agreement, that harms people's perceptions of the AI model. So that if we want to design this kind of a second opinion as an intervention, we would like to always keep in mind that to show people the information sources to have some extent of agreement. Okay, so this intervention mainly works in the scenario where we can pre-collect these second opinions. But we also say that we also say that in the synchronous social influence scenario, for example, group discussion, all these social influence are happening in the real-time format. We may not have the time to pre-collect all these independent information sources. How can we deal with that? We again can incorporate this independent social influence, but driven by LLMs. For example, here in this study, we incorporate these conversational agents driven by LLMs in the group discussion. But specifically, this conversational agent will try to be a devil's advocate. So this devil's advocate is something that it will always disagree with some opinions among the group discussion, so that it can also serve as a second opinion in this group AI decision-making scenario. And we found that this devil's advocate can definitely increase the group's decision-making accuracy if it actively argues against the AI's opinion. And also, it can make people to less over-rely on AI if the devil's advocate driven by LM can actively engage with the group discussion. Okay, so as you can see here, this social influence can also be designed in the real-time communication format when people are collaborating with AI. Okay, so until now, we have talked about the previous research that have done to enhance human collaboration from these two routes of individual cognitive process and the social influence. And in the future, I think that's definitely not the end. We still have much more things to do. And here I will roughly talk about two routes I'm particularly interested in. The first route is about human-AI interaction in this era of Gen AI. How humans will interact with Gen AI-based systems, and how can we design Gen AI-based systems to facilitate human collaboration. So, as you can see here, human interaction is actually a space. It involves different types of tasks, different types of activities. Say, time-wise, with this Gen AI thing, people are doing longer term of interaction with AI. And from an AI's action space perspective, AI can be generative, it can provide more content than beyond the traditional prediction. And what humans can do is also beyond either accept or reject. They can do this kind of audited editing, this prompting, all these workflows, so that this space of human interaction has been largely expanded due to the development of Gen AI. And the decision making is actually a representative case here. So, in decision making between human and AI, we explicitly account this role of cognitive process. So in other cases, I think we also should highlight this cognitive process of human users in their collaboration with Gen AI-based systems. In one of our recent studies, for example, in the interactive storytelling domain, we say when people are trying to do this collaborative storytelling, basically like writing game scripts collaboratively with AI, they also have the specific cognitive process. They would like to imagine or plan a nonlinear narrative based on a linear story. This cognitive process is unique to this use case. And how can Gen AI-based systems tailored to this specific cognitive process? What we did here is we developed these interactive systems, taking care of from writing to abstracting to branching all these cognitive stages of humans' collaborative creation with Gen AI-based systems, so that the results show that this tailoring to cognitive processes actually enhance users' experience and creation quality. Okay, so that's a specific case for a specific use case. But we see in reality there are different users and different user scenarios. You have several ways to deal with this kind of situation. You can always have one AI-based model to roll. For example, you always use this GPT-like product to use natural language query to do the interaction. And also you can do what I previously did. So we manually design the AI workflows for each user and each user scenario. But I don't think that either of the approach is adequate to tailor the Gen AI-based system to different users and different user scenarios. What I imagine in the future is that, firstly, we need to get a bunch of human behavior data when they're interacting with Gen AI, so that we can create these human AI interaction benchmarks. Based on these benchmarks, we can do the modeling of humans' cognition at a large scale. so that we have the foundation model of human cognition, so they can serve as a digital twin of human users. After that, this human behavior data can also be used to evaluate the existing Gen AI-based systems. And using this trained digital twin model with the model cognition, we can either do the fine-tuning, interaction design, or agentic workflow to the Gen AI-based system, so that we have this cognition-aware Gen AI. Okay, so that's one perspective that we want to dive deeper into human collaboration in different use cases. And also, the second route of my future research in recent years will be that I want to promote this robust human collaboration. What do I mean by that? I'll first go with an example here. Say, previously, when the malicious operators want to attack the AI models, they can directly attack models. But now, during this human collaboration paradigm, they can also target on the human AI collaborative process by soliciting the inappropriate human behavior. What are these inappropriate human behaviors, and how will they be solicited? For example, we say, when the malicious operators want to deploy some attacks against a human collaboration, we found that if they deploy the attacks on the cases where humans have high confidence, it can quickly destroy people's trust on the AI-based systems. And furthermore, if we can use some computational model to describe people's trust status in AI. For example, here, if we use a input-output hidden Markov model by taking the human's confidence and whether to deploy or attack as the input, and use the hidden state to describe people's trust status in AI, and then use the output to describe the reliance behavior on AI of the decision maker, then we can see malicious operators can utilize this computational model to efficiently deploy their attacks against human collaboration so that they can reduce people's trust in AI to the maximum extent. That's a representative case of what are the inappropriate behaviors can be solicited and be against human collaboration. So as researchers, definitely we would like to further develop this kind of defensive approaches to combat against these malicious operators, to promote the appropriate human engagement with AI, so that the human collaboration can be robust. Again, I have several thrusts. The first one is that we would like to put us in their shoes to think about what are the approaches to attack human collaboration, and as defenders, what are the approaches to protect human collaboration. And from the development and the management perspective, how can we do the unit testing to make the human collaboration robust even before the deployment? Okay, so that's a whole picture of my existing research about how do we enhance human collaboration and how I plan to enhance human collaboration in the next several years. Also, I would like to thank all my collaborators for all their efforts in all of this joint work. Without them, these kind of achievements cannot be attained. Okay, I'm ready for questions and comments.
Very nice talk. I really appreciate it. So in your first paper that you presented, you said you calibrated the AI at different agreement level with human, but at the same accuracy. I'm wondering how you achieved that, or whether that calibration can induce some further bias to the AI. Say, if the AI, you wanted to have the same accuracy, but a lower level of agreement, will the AI tend to classify all of the data into one class, and will that impact
Sure.
humans' trust?
Yeah, sure. That's a very good point. I'll first illustrate the specific process that we took to operate that experiment. First, we got a bunch of data that we collected from pilot study, where we have people's majority vote or judgment on that task and people's confidence on that task. So what we want to do is a linear programming, so that they have two constraints. That it's either, for example, for the lowest human agreement treatment, we want to minimize the human agreement and maintain the difference between the AI's accuracy and 75% by selecting selecting 20 tasks from the pool pilot study that we collected. And then after that linear programming, we achieved a set of tasks and a set of predictions on these tasks. And then how do we achieve that AI model? We again select a bunch of training data to specifically train the AI model to have these kind of predictions. Because in our real life, it's kind of you will never know where your data comes from. So it is possible that you have 3 AI models. They have the same accuracy, but because of the source of their different training data, they have a distribution. They have different distributions, so that they have different agreement level with the humans. Does it make sense? Yeah.
Actually, I have a follow-up question. So in your experiment related to the AI stuff, are you really implement AI algorithm, or you just assume I have an AI, I just give the output, pretend that's AI output?
You actually train the AI model. For example, for the
What AI model are you using?
it depends on different tasks. For example, we say
In your first work.
I'll go to this. For example, in this cognition aware AI, we fine-tuned a ResNet-50 to do the image classification.
How about in the first experiment?
In the first experiment, it's just a random forest. It's kind of because the main purpose of this experiment is to figure out the agreement between human and AI. So it takes just a simple AI model to facilitate the operation.
Okay. So indeed, you are tuning the AI model to meet the required accuracy.
Yeah. Actually, it's not to the AI model to meet the requirement. It's actually an active sampling from the training set to make the model train on the specific data set to meet the requirement.
Okay, in your work, you use a lot of human confidence. So how did you measure human confidence in your experiment? You depend on self-reporting confidence, or you have some more objective way to measure human confidence?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think all of the industrial engineering researchers here, we have this kind of I don't know whether it's a widely applied theory that confidence is a hidden variable. They cannot directly observe, and all the measurements of this hidden variable will have bias, no matter whether it's either self-report, or we use some behavior metrics like the coherence among a set of people. For example, if we say we ask 10 people to make the same to make predictions on the same task, if they all agree, then the confidence should be high. If they disagree 5 to 5, then the confidence should be low. At expectation. So all of these kind of measurements, either it's objective or subjective, they all have this kind of bias, but they are all trying to describe this kind of internal status of confidence.
But in your experiment,
in my experiment,
you are using?
In my experiment, for example, the cognition aware AI thing, it's to use a self-reported confidence. And for the attack thing, they use the agreement as a proxy of confidence.
Great presentation. I especially like the accessibility of the slides, so that was really great. I have a couple of methodological inquiries over here. For these studies, the humans, did you use mechanical Turks, or did participants come in the lab and do the study?
Actually, roughly, I would say roughly 70-30. 70% of my studies are conducted online by using either a mechanical Turk, or nowadays people are actually transferring to prolific.
Oh, okay, got it. I don't use that. I know the term from when I heard of it, but I don't use that in my lab. I'm wondering if that has some biases. So, for example, in your second study, where you have AI recommendation and a second opinion, they are both presented virtually, right, digitally. I'm wondering how well are the participants primed to differentiate construct-wise that one is an AI agent and one is a human agent?
Sure. That's a good point. Well, first of all, I want to say that we noticed that while both doing online experiments and doing in-lab experiments, they all have their own bias. For example, if we are doing online experiments, then we have more data with more noise, and people are focusing on general population. So that in order to deal with that, the tasks that we employed here, most of them are just we call it general human intelligence tasks, so that everyone can do it, like predict speeding event. Everyone can do this task, so that we try to reduce the bias introduced by the task type, and also the second question is that the second part is that about this priming thing of the second opinion. We actually used one page of introduction to explicitly describe what are these two information sources come from. And actually the second opinion actually come from a pilot study. The opinions from a pilot study pool. But we just designed 3 different sampling policies to sample the second opinion. And also we have also in the interface under that second opinion we also have a small caption here indicates participants that it is generated by a human peer that is not affected by AI.
Just one more question. In the first study, you have, you have the study that you've done where you're looking at trust. I'm wondering how contextual factors and demographics may impact the outcomes and whether your findings are generalizable to, let's say, an emergency responder looking at, should I go inside this burning building versus a dating app, right? Or if the responder is, if the responder teams are teams of, males and females firefighters. And so I wonder how these results would be generalizable to that.
Sure. That's a very good point. It's kind of this contextual information is very significant in human collaboration. Well, definitely, as you previously said, it's kind of especially the stake that the decision maker holds will determine their behavioral patterns. For example, as we say in this first study, what we focus on is mainly the general decision making tasks, and we also try to investigate some of the high risk tasks. For example, in one of our studies, we investigated people's trust in aviation operated by AI, and the result is that people's negative emotion is a main driver here. It's dominance here, and no matter what you manipulate in other perspectives, people always have this kind of negative emotions. Yeah, and so basically, I think it's case by case. It depends. So basically, our results in the first study mainly applies to the general decision making task.
Thank you so much.
So I have a question. How could your research maybe inform the next generation of AI models? So you mentioned some models, but they're pretty basic. And so what I'm wondering is how could maybe a large language model that's very hard to train, which is probably not possible in academia, how would that fit into your research to say what role can you play to make the models also better, right? And what could be the path forward?
Sure. That's a very good point. I think that's a good point I want to convey here as a cognition aware Gen AI. I think although, as you previously mentioned, that it's kind of a pre-training of a large language model in academia may be a little bit not that feasible, but I think we still have a lot of things to do. So we can imagine that a large language model is here. First, you can do something here to design what kind of data are fed to the large language model. What are the factors here? For example, either security issues, robustness issues, trustworthy issues. How can we make the data clean and useful for large language models? And after you got the output from the large language model, something that we can do, as we previously said, is either you can say agentic workflow design is especially inspired by cognitive processes. And this kind of agentic workflow design, for example, you have multiple LM-based agents. You want them to work together. But nowadays, most of the agentic workflow design are manually by experts. But what we imagine in the future is that we have some kind of management here. It has knowledge to adapt the agentic workflow to different use cases, so that it can auto-expand this workflow to accommodate different users, different use cases, so that they can jointly contribute to their collaboration with humans. And also we have talking about this kind of upstream and downstream of LLMs, but also although pre-train is not that feasible, but we can still do some fine-tuning here. Especially one of the routes that I will be interested in is constraint decoding. It's kind of for example, we say when we are doing collaborative storytelling, people are conveying their intent by natural language to be constraints. And these constraints will be applied into the generation of into the LM generated interactive stories. And what people usually do here nowadays is that do resampling of the generated content. After I generate one full sentence or one full event, I try to accept or reject it like a Monte Carlo here. But what we can do is we can still do something that is beyond that to fine tune the last